Inevitable. The Portland City Council passes a daytime camping ban. All right. From 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., no camping. No homelessness on our streets. No homelessness blocking driveways. No camping in the parks. No public camping here. No public camping there. Is this going to do anything in Portland? Are they really going to throw people in jail for multiple violations of, urban camping? Let's get into it. Let's see what the deal is. Here we go. So I got this new ordinance. The ordinance bans camping in public places from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. How about just not at all? What about just not at all? No, we can't do that because the whole thing with this is so ridiculous. You got a bunch of drug addicts living in tents, right? Makeshift shelters, whatever it is. Are these people really going to pack up? They are high all night. And during the day, they just kind of, just barely struggle to get through and then just rinse, repeat. Are they honestly going to pack up? No. But they got to put some teeth to something. And that's what this is as far as legislation, right? Portland City Council. I've been really sick the last couple of days, so I'm just trying to get back on top of it. So if you hear my voice just not sounding great, that's why. But we're going to do this because, you just got to work through things at times, right? Portland City Council voted Wednesday evening to pass an ordinance that bans camping in the city during the day starting July 7th. What about 4th of July? I like 4th of July. 4th of July is coming up. That's a good holiday. God bless America, right? Fireworks. It's so great. The ordinance bans camping in public places from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and forbids camping near parks, docks. We don't want to have any camping near docks, schools, and construction zones. All right, schools and construction zones. Yep, makes sense. Parks, absolutely. Docks, because it's impacting the environment. Not really sure there. Campers also cannot block home and business entries. Is this going to have any impact at all? Repeat violators will face a $100 fine or 30 days in jail. Okay. Nobody is paying any fines. I don't think anybody's going to jail. Do we have the resources in Portland to be throwing homeless people in jail? I don't think that's going to happen. But they're just trying to put something on the book so that they can say, well, we're working on it, right? Katie O'Brien, the executive director of the Women's Day Shelter, Rose Haven, said ahead of the vote that she and her colleagues were against the ordinance. Of course they were. She said the ban is counterproductive because campers would be forced to spend a lot of time and energy lugging their belongings throughout the day. They're not doing that. They're just going to continue to get high and whatever happens, happens. So, that comment there, that's just not, people aren't packing up. These are not backpackers that are on the, Pacific Crest Trail. These are not, what's the trail on the East Coast? The Dedirock. I can't remember that other trail. These are not, you know what I'm saying though. Pacific Crest Trail goes from Mexico up to Canada, and people started in the spring and they hustle to get through until it gets super hot. They are not packing up and moving. That's ridiculous. I think it's inevitable this is going to go through today, she said. I think that my first reaction is that this is going to be really problematic for people who are living outside, and it's not a reasonable expectation on a lot of levels. No, it's not, because you have let these people live a lifestyle, you've encouraged it, and now you're sitting there going, God, what do we do? We got like 800 encampments throughout Portland, and man, it is not looking things are not looking great. So we got to do something. So that's what they're doing. Maybe, and we've already got record low numbers of police officers in Portland, right? So is this going to fall to the police who are already dealing with crazy shootings, murders, fentanyl overdoses? Are we going to, layer one more task upon the police force to go after, it's 8:30 a.m. No can do. You can't camp here. Whatever that, whatever time period that is. What is it? It is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. No, at night, all right, you can, roll out your tent at 8:01 p.m. and sleep until 7:59 the next morning. And then you got to be up and out of there. It's just, yeah. All right. So Kirkpatrick Tyler, Urban Alchemy's chief of governmental and community affairs, said the situation is a tough needle to thread. I thought that was that's an interesting comment. It's a tough needle to thread. You get that idea of, all right, putting that, trying to get it through, and it's just really, needle hole is just really super small. Yeah, we're trying to work out what to go here. Urban Alchemy. I just did a podcast where one of their supervisors who was going to get a raise was basically in 2021, ran to his car he got shot in the leg, and then he ran to his car and he was shooting people, cranked off 8 rounds on the streets. Those are the kind of folks that Urban Alchemy has working for them. They have convicted felons working for them because they feel that those folks are the best to be able to help people that are dealing with homelessness. And, that whole thing, you hire a bunch of convicted felons because that's going to work out well. So that's Urban Alchemy, right? But here's the spin. This is interesting. This is what the Urban Alchemy guy says. These ordinances really are about creating usable space for everybody, Tyler said. Okay. All right. I'm down with that. All right. I'm okay with that. And so far for Urban Alchemy, we are glad that our part of the work is to provide safe spaces. So they benefit from this. Hey, it's illegal, to be camping here from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Why don't you come, do our thing? And so they've got a built-in clientele, right? So this benefits anybody that's going down those roads, that's taking millions and millions of dollars from said citizens of Portland and may or may not be helping the homeless population at all. So that's my 2 cents. He says he bases his organization's success on creating safe spaces that treat people with dignity and respect. The real issue that I have is that it has become so apparent that none of these folks really want help. So why are we even kidding ourselves that if we create thousands of units of housing, that things are going to get better? They're just not. It's just not going to happen. Those addicts are just going to go in and destroy housing, rinse, repeat, keep going. That's what you got going on. No one can look at the state of our unhoused neighbors living in encampments and say, that's what somebody deserves, he said. No, that is 100% true. But then do you put them into a tiny house that Urban Alchemy's, been tasked to run? Portland's going to pay $50 million to have this outfit from LA come up. I think it's LA, where LA can't get a handle on their own homelessness. So he said, I think we cannot romanticize the experience of our sisters and brothers that are unhoused. I don't think anybody's romanticizing drug addicts living willy-nilly in encampments. Watched a bunch of, since I've been kind of sick and my sleep schedule's way off. So last night I binged on just a bunch of ridiculous videos. And, man, some of the stuff going on in Portland. There is a serial assaulter of females known as the Viper that's out there. You've got probably a possibility of a serial murderer running around in Portland. There's 6 women. 3 of them have some ties that, they've been able to put together. That could be out there. But some of the stories that I hear about, what happens to women in encampments, it just makes your skin crawl, right? And none of them want to come forward and say, hey, I was assaulted, because they're afraid they're going to get killed. Period. That's just horrible. So no, I don't think anybody's romanticizing urban camping. We all know what goes on. It is horrific. But these people, again, are choosing to live there. And Portland has allowed them to live this lifestyle, decriminalize all the drugs, decriminalize all of the crime. It's the perfect petri dish for, let's just see how this goes. It's not looking good. So now we got to do something. Make it illegal. Let's make it illegal. Yeah. And here we are, right? He says wherever they operate regulated mass campsites in neighborhoods, they have an obligation to keep parks and schools safe and streets and sidewalks that are passable. O'Brien says that they all agree that they want sidewalks to be clear, saying it's safer, it's easier, it's friendlier. But she says it's not just about the sidewalks. We don't have housing options or shelter options for people. It just seems like the timing isn't right for this. Well, whether or not you have housing options, these folks aren't going into those options for the most part. They want to continue living where they want to live, doing what they're doing, because it's it's a lifestyle outside of the bounds of, what's reasonable. And they want to keep doing that. Any kind of regulation of their lifestyle, and they're hands down. They're no. We've been living this way for years, oftentimes you'll hear. Why would I want to go into some kind of shelter system where they got a bunch of rules and I can't do my drugs and I can't bring all my, possessions in and I can't do this and I can't do that, because they've got community guidelines for these areas, because you can't just have, shenanigans going on all day long in these housing options. However, Mayor Ted Wheeler recently said the unsanctioned camps around the city are a humanitarian catastrophe that he is partially responsible for creating. Somebody allowed him to happen, right? Somebody allowed this to happen. And it's leadership. It's city leadership, because you didn't hammer down when it first got started. We love our fellow human being. You know what? They're going to get to treatment sometime. They're going to get to rehab sometime. They're going to get into detox sometime. In the meantime, just let them live willy-nilly wherever, and it'll be fine. And then you see the state of Portland now. That's not pretty. That's not the way people are meant to live. But it's what we're doing, right? And that the goal of the ordinance is to get people to services and shelter. Is this making it illegal? Is that really going to move the needle at all? I don't think so. Because if you tell an addict, hey, you know what? Your lifestyle is going to kill you. And they're like, I know. I've already been Narcan 6 times. At least a couple of times is pretty normal for anybody smoking fentanyl right now. So, that's not really a threat to these folks. Wheeler's office said if somebody who is homeless is offered shelter or housing and they decline it, they are prohibited from camping. Who's going to enforce that? The cops? No, there's no way. And, maybe every now and then something, all right, you guys can't be here. Are they going to spend their time now dealing with this? They can receive up to 2 warnings, but a 3rd warning would end up with jail or with fines. I don't see prosecutors in Portland giving them jail time or actually handing out fines. You had people in Portland absolutely tearing apart buildings, parks, physical structures, federal buildings. And did any of them get arrested? No. And if they did, what few that were arrested, district attorney just let them right back out. Hey, good job. Mostly peaceful protesting, guys. Well done. 2 thumbs up, because that whole far left thing. And that's what you've got for a district attorney in Portland in Multnomah County. So why would we expect this to change? We're going to throw this law in the books. Here we go. The Portland Police Bureau will manage enforcement. All right. Okay. And they have enough manpower to go around to do that? No, they don't. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Will anything really change? Probably not. Kind of like Mayor Ted's 90-day reset or safer summer PDX. A lot of talk, not any real action. Because at the end of the day, unless you get these people into treatment or mandate that they go into treatment, which you're not going to do, you just basically rinse, repeat, keep the cycle going. However, Aaron Schmutz, president of the Portland Police Association, the Bureau's union, said that there needs to be better communication between the city and county on what outreach and potential enforcement will look like. And at this point in time, I think we're kind of in a wait and see mode of what does this look like? How is this actually going to go? All of a sudden, are Portland's finest just going to be arresting people willy-nilly left and right. I just don't see that happening. And most of the residents in Portland, if you ask them about, legalization of drugs and Proposition 110 and all these things that have, impacted Portland, not in a positive way, in my opinion, but a lot of them, they believe in this. They believe in the whole harm reduction thing. They believe in handing out free needles. They believe in, sometimes abstinence from drugs is not part of somebody's lifestyle. And we need to respect that. So let's get them, free pipes so they can smoke their drugs. Let's get them free needles so they can inject and, not get hepatitis. Because somebody, shooting up, their biggest concern is getting hepatitis. I mean, the whole concept to me is just brain dead, right? So he's also concerned the police bureau doesn't have enough staff to take on this new responsibility. Really? I mean, Portland police are continually undermanned and they're utilizing overtime, as are a lot of police departments. But Portland in particular, the numbers are kind of staggering on shifts and how many folks they have or they don't have available and how undermanned they are. And now you're going to throw arresting homeless people that are on drugs into the mix. All right, good luck with that. I mean, who is really going to enforce that? Like the cops don't already have their hands full dealing with what they are after having been defunded and basically the city saying, you guys are terrible. You're awful. You're terrible and awful. And so now they're going to, it's going to be on the cops to make this go. I don't really see that happening. I don't really see much change there. I mean, it's just, yeah. Scott Kerman, executive director of the Blanchett House, who hands out food. Okay. Do you remember Wendy? You remember Wendy who was like, Portland makes this a great place to do drugs and we can just, do whatever we want to do. And remember when she was saying in the morning, we go down to the house? That was the Blanchett House that has been there for years and years and years, hands out food. We go down to the Blanchett House, we get breakfast, go get high, and then we go down to Blanchett House and go get some lunch and go get high and then, rinse, repeat for dinner. And that's the Blanchett House. The shelter in Portland said the city needs to ensure that there is sufficient training and guardrails to guarantee that enforcement is not inequitable. Inequitable? You're living in a tent illegally. You're trespassing. You're making it difficult for everybody else to use the park. You're making it difficult for everybody else to use the dock. You're making it, impossible for schools to operate safely. Because, the stuff coming out of homeless encampments is crazy. It's crazy. Shootings, people running around with guns, gangs running the distribution of drugs. One of the things I watched last night that was super interesting was a dude. He was either in Portland or he was in Philadelphia. I can't remember. I think he was in Portland and he was selling drugs. And here's the numbers. And this is a drug dealer, so, take it with a grain of salt. But from my standpoint, everything kind of made sense. He says he sells between 100 and 150 doses of fentanyl per day. And the gang that he runs for, it was a white dude, probably late 30s, early 40s, something like that. And he says that he was on a 11-hour shift or a 12-hour shift, meaning that he was on that street corner selling that stuff. And he said point blank, here's how this works. All right. You can go on the dark web and you can order up $400 worth of chemicals that you're going to make into fentanyl. And for an extra $50, you get that overnighted to your front doorstep. So, you put a rush on it. So for $450, you've got this, batch of chemicals delivered to your home and you're going to make fentanyl out of. And then you're going to make enough doses. You're going to sell that. If you took all that stuff and did it straight up, that's going to be about $100,000 worth of fentanyl. So $450 to $100,000 with a little bit of effort, a little bit of, putting some time into mixing up the drugs and whatever it is that they do. And if, some of the stuff doesn't get quite mixed up, that's tough. Everybody's got choices to make, right? And that's literally what he said. He said, hey, I got to eat. and you got to do drugs. So this is what we're doing. So, those numbers, when you hear those kind of numbers, and granted, I don't have any way of verifying that. I am not going on the dark web to say, can I get this delivered? But that wouldn't shock me, right? It wouldn't shock me. We always hear about how cheap it is to put this stuff together. And that's why it is so prevalent, because it's super cheap to put together and it's so addictive. And if few people overdose, natural selection, Darwin. I mean, I support this time, place, and manner ordinance in alignment with requirements under House Bill 3115, Mapp said in a statement. This is Mingus Mapps. He was out of town and did not vote. Portlanders want to return to order, cleanliness, and peace on our streets. Well, unless you get the drug addicts out of there, unless you get the drug dealers out of there, unless you get this ecosystem out of there, you're not going to have order, you're not going to have cleanliness, and you're certainly not going to have peace. That's my opinion. Mayor Ted Wheeler and Commissioner Dan Ryan and Rene Gonzalez voted yes. Commissioner Carmen Rubio voted no. So it was a 3-1 vote. I think it's one of those things where they just got to do something. It's gotten so bad. They were like, oh man, we have to do something. This is it. All right, let's put a law on the books. Here we go. Is this going to work? Don't care. Let's do it anyway. I voted no. This is the one dissenting vote right here. I voted no because I was interested in seeing a more thought out plan. Let's reimagine. Let's rethink this again. And in the meantime, just do nothing. Right? I was interested in seeing a more thought out. How much thinking do we need to do? You've got an absolute dumpster fire train wreck of a city on your hands, and you're sitting there with your thumb up your butt thinking. All right. How's that thumb feel? That good? All right. Because that's what you're doing. And there's also some questions outstanding to me around where are folks going to go once it's implemented? They're not going anywhere because it's nothing really going to happen. These are some steps that I think with more time and collaboration, we could have gotten to resolve these outstanding questions. Like how? What are you going to do? These people are on drugs. They're not going anywhere. They're going to continue living in their tents. They do not care about $100 fine. They don't really care about jail time because they know that is just a bluff. Period, right? Rubio also said that more time was needed to vet the conditions and allow for outreach so that the public knows where there are places to refer to or where individuals know where to go. I think all the individuals know where to go. That is not the question. But they don't want to go there. And they openly state that. They openly say that time and time and time again. So that's just more nonsense. It's more talk. So more time needed to vet the conditions. Well, what are the conditions? Again, train wreck dumpster fire of a city where this stuff is going on. One of the other storylines that I've been kind of kicking around is the Ritz-Carlton is going to open in July. You've got a hotel and a big condo. It's a $600 million project in downtown Portland. It is 5.5 blocks north and west of the 3 major parks that had the Summer of Love protests. I mean, it's right there. It's not for it being in downtown and being so close to just the shenanigans that happen in the Summer of Love. It's still not a terrible location. I mean, it's the stuff around it, I am told, is okay. And there's a couple of places there that are like, okay, yeah, all right. You got a $600 million real estate project in downtown Portland. I mean, nothing has ever been done even remotely close to that. How's that going to go? You got in roughly 30% of the condos you got a condo building and then you got a hotel, right? It's kind of one of those dual things, all under the Ritz-Carlton name. You've got 30% of the condos are pre-sold. I kind of wonder when those are pre-sold. This has been a project that's been in permitting, I believe, since 2017. And I think they broke ground in 2019, if I'm off there. But it's supposed to open up in July. And the hotel rooms in the hotel are going to be $450 a night. And then, you're going to go outside and you're going to walk around and you're going to see some pretty shocking stuff relative to Ritz-Carlton. But, there are always people with money in every city that are just like, Portland's fine. It's good. I'll buy a $6 million condo. I'll buy one of those bad boys. Yeah, I love it. I love Portland. There's always those folks out there, right? Are there really, I think it was 100 and, what did I say? Like 120 units or something in the condo project. And then several hundred in the hotel, which, rooms are starting at $450 a night. So that will be something super interesting to watch. Meanwhile, you've got legislation going on. I got to do something with these 700 encampments throughout our city as Ritz-Carlton goes up and $450 a night and multi-millions per condo unit. Okay. All right. I'm sure this will work out fine. It'll be good. The concerns were not contained just in city council. As some say, they're worried about the impact on those living on the street and frontline workers. You know what? I think we're past worrying about those on the street. Folks have made decisions to live on the street and live a lifestyle of drug addiction and crime. Straight up. So I say we don't, worry about them. The thing you worry about them is that we as taxpayers have to pay for their lifestyle and their lifestyle choices. And I don't think we should have to, period. All right. But I understand there are people who do not think that way. And I think they're crazy, but that's just me. I have friends right now who are being moved around like crazy, who have lost their medications, who have to walk the streets at night because they're being harassed in the middle of the night. People shouldn't be living on the streets, period. That's not where people should be living. It's just not. It's not. It's not a viable option. And yet you've made it an option. So now you're playing catch up. I don't believe this litigation is going to have much impact. And that was a statement by Sandra Comstock, who's the executive director of Hygiene for All. All right. Another harm reduction type deal. So that's what you got going on in Portland. Will this have any impact? I don't think so. It's something to talk about. It's something to point at. But Portland's already got so many problems that unless you come up with something that allows people to be involuntarily put into treatment or straight to jail, which I do not see happening. And those are really your only two options. Getting people into housing. Come on now. We've seen how those numbers go. I mean, honestly, you're going to get a few hundred people into housing and you got what? I think in our point in time count, our pit count in Portland, there were literally like 6,600 known counted folks. One of the videos I was watching last night, it was Kevin, and I forget his last name. He's been interviewed a ton. I think he's been either with We Heart Seattle, but a lot of folks interview him because he kind of knows everybody on the streets. He kind of does. He's more of an activist for, hey, you need some help. And he's really realistic about the fact that, these are drug addicts and they're literally killing themselves and we need to get people into treatment, not housing. And he recognizes that housing is, treatment is housing. He's on the right path. And he was taking the reporter that I was watching, or the individual shooting the video, and they were on the Willamette River right across from multi-million-dollar condos that are on the river. And these folks had this elaborate housing setup with like driftwood. I mean, like into these structures and just, a lot of people living there. And you're telling me on a pit count in one night, you're going to go run through all these places and find out how many people are living there, out of the way, obscured, tidelands from the river, So you got 6,600 people in a pit count, point in time count. It's realistically, it's got to be double that, right? Like 12, 13,000. So realistically, say you provide housing for a couple hundred, with your programs and with your urban alchemy, how many people are you really going to get into housing? That's not going to solve anything. Getting a whole bunch of these people into treatment and really getting their lives going in the right direction, that's going to solve things, but we're not approaching it from that standpoint at all. Just not. And there are, Portland and Oregon has, it's in the bottom two for providing addiction services in the United States out of all the states. I think it's Oregon and Virginia or West Virginia, something like that. You're like, oh, that makes sense. But Oregon, just no resources for if you want to get into detox. It's just brutal. So, we talk about this whole housing thing, and in reality, it's a drug thing. I mean, it just is. But nobody wants to go down those roads because the folks that voted in this stuff, the whole decriminalizing and, drugs and the criminal activity it takes to, we haven't even talked about the rinse and repeat of the crime going on, the theft from local stores, the theft from local homes, and the impact that's having. But that's the whole ecosystem that exists so that people can afford their drugs, because the drugs ain't free. They're a lot cheaper than they used to be, and they're way stronger than they used to be, but they're not free. So the ladies can basically prostitute themselves out, and the men can steal from the community, from stores, from wherever, from, whatever it might be, and go down that route. Now, is a daytime camping ban really going to impact much of that? No, but it's a talking point. So let's reimagine and rethink this. I think we need to really put some emphasis into this instead of just doing something. And the whole housing thing is such that, you get dollars for that. Big money goes into the housing thing, housing the unhoused industrial complex. And it's just a big machine for making money. And, we saw it here with King County Regional Housing Authority. Mark Doan stepped down after he requested $12 billion for a budget that in Seattle that's only 250 right now, million. I mean, just some real harebrained stuff going on. If you're a business owner, you're like, oh, okay, all right, that makes zero sense whatsoever. So a camping ban, it's going to give a little bit of teeth, but is it a paper tiger, in my opinion? Because it doesn't really get at the root cause. And to dump this on the cops in Portland, really? Are we going to go there? We just did. Really? And you're going to point to that and say, oh, this is going to have major impact. I don't know. I don't see it happening. That's just me. But I'm a real estate guy, so what would I possibly know? Anyway. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for supporting. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.